All right, so welcome to this video. We're just going to do a little energy share, a little funky toning, sound, I don't know, light sharing, and I think a little light language also. So I'm going to pause. So welcome if you haven't seen these videos before. Welcome back if you have. And we have the lovely Miss Kandice joining us today. So we're just going to kind of set our intention now to be in the highest space of love and light, bliss, charged frequency, and oneness and unity. The codes and frequencies of bliss and love and unification. So I'll be sharing a little light language on that intention, and then we'll try to flow and not cancel each other out. It's hard on the Zoom sometimes. This is meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear layer. I'm going to take my earpiece out just for a second. So if you start, I'll try to open my eyes so I can see if you start talking.我点苦苦我呀也那一滴血我过我那呀我过那我哎，给也那一滴天那苦苦那我也点那呀我过那我也点也是多呀那呀我过我那那一起那。也那一我也过也那滴那也是多呀那家我也得啊。给我也点那家我过我呀我过我那点那点么过我呀点我是点那给那滴我过我那点我过我。过我点那点我那见我过我那我点那点那过我那点那点那见那嘿呀多我也点。As we bounce this light back and forth, as we transfer these codes to and fro, to and from and to, we in tune, we in tune, we in tune, we tune in with one another's access frequency portals in system dynamics and functionalities, functioning realities. Okay, you want to keep going? Are you ready?
Ikiwata ihu unu ka iya awu wana niki ka hoto na iya. Iyo ho to o aki iyo hana aha iki ihi au ho oho. Au hai odu ho aki ina. Ihi ihu nana haki kyau hwana a. Ihi hoa nana haki kyau tu hu hwana kyau tu aha. Ia wa a o ani I shisho na kaki I ya. Ia yo ho hoa wa wani kyau shu. So there's a lot of energy that's coming through that's really working on the root system, which is why the energy wants to come through very, very deep and very strong and very supportive. And I can feel actually the root energy coming through very strongly in the heart. So it's like coming right up from the roots all the way up and really emanating and sort of anchoring and unifying the lower chakras, and then the upper chakras are meeting it, and it's wanting to come through very, very powerfully and assertively and supportively through the heart and the throat.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because it's like usually I have a certain tone that I hit and I'm like, no.
Really wanting to come in really low, but really, really heartfelt.
Yeah. It's and it's a little bit of a mishmash in the languages. And what I'm being shown are pictures of like literally the words, the tunes, the tones kind of like spinning out, spinning and sticking. So it's like they're spinning and then sticking into like the space that we're creating from. And it's like bing, bing, bing.
So I would just like to also say that the grandmother energy of all the lineages, of all the grandmothers that have cared for and carried all their own children and their children's children, the grandma that just like loves all people and all beings, and it's just like, come here, like come into your grandmother's arms and just like put your hand, put your head, put your ear on her heart and feel her arms and feel her laughter, feel the laughter in her chest that is full of wisdom, that is full of maturity, that has been through sorrows, it has been through joys, it's been through everything. And it's been through this energy, this grandmother energy has witnessed and participated in so much that it knows that it's wise to love and it's wise to laugh and it's wise to embrace all life's children, and that even the most misunderstood children can respond to that love and that unconditional, non-judgmental embrace of the grandmother. That wants to come through.
And I'm hearing ground into Mother Earth. Ground into Mother and run to her bosom as you would run to your grandmother's bosom to comfort and care for you, just as you comfort and care for your grandmother. Recognize that she is within you and you within she. For as we stream together in these frequencies, we reignite within each other the motherly qualities of compassion, of forgiveness, of strength, of stability, just like the grandmother tree roots in and supports all of her sucklings, so to speak, all that are suckling under her wings. We are creating this space for one another. We are bringing this energy, sucking in our own energy, so to speak, in an imploding factorization. We invite you to recognize that you are united in love and light. I'm seeing this, like this mother tree. I'm seeing all of the women coming together, but also doesn't matter as far as female versus male. I'm seeing this as a recognition of the marriage of that feminine, masculine strength, yet understanding and compassion. And recognizing that this is our human nature. We are being invited to nurture one another, to come back to the motherly quality that we all have within us, man, woman, child. It doesn't matter. And as we come back to this freedom, we free one another from blame, judgment. Just as grandmother supported us when we fell down, not blaming us for, I'm seeing like people falling off their bikes and somebody yelling at you for riding your bicycle wrong. We are being invited to resource that energy of complete compassion and support during these moment-to-moment interactions with one another and connecting back into Mother Earth.
So I'm hearing and I'm feeling Mother Earth, Grandmother Earth, and Earth that is the innocent child. All these aspects of Earth, all these layers of experience that have been on Earth where it has been as though Earth was the child, or Earth was the mother, Earth was the grandmother, the maiden. These are just all experiential milestones of the journeys of a planetary body and how it facilitates its own dream through the dreams of all of the creatures and all the life that moves within that earth sphere, and just appreciating the sheer magnitude of the dream that is the earth's dream. Even as the algae moves, even as the tree supports all of the life forms in the forest. And it's kind of like I'm hearing that song by, I think her name is Snatam Kaur. The sun shines on anyone. The sun shines on everyone. And that grandmother tree has become that through rite of passage and shelters anyone, shelters all life. And just recognizing that all life is a child in the great dream of this massive earth planetary body.
Yeah, so it's like what we talked about earlier too. It's like the crystals and the water and strata and layers, and it's like layer upon layer. It took so much to build and bring us to this space that we're at now. Everything's happening now. So the past version of Earth, the child, the older version of Earth, the grandmother, the Mother Earth that we're existing within now, it's all happening now. And the micro to the macrocosm, and we're constantly creating and dreaming and building. And as we create and dream, we're so interwoven together. There is no separation other than that which we create. So we're at this still point, yes, where we are recreating the wave that once was, that will be. We're getting back into that longitudinal wave, so to speak. It's like that long wave rather than all of this going on, which is what we're working. And I wouldn't even say working towards. That's what we create when we come together in unification.
And the word magma wants to come up for some reason.
Yeah.
I was saying monumental, but then it was like magnitude, magma, and like this magma, this molten, boiling point where all things sort of melt into one another and then kind of spew forth from the volcano. Mm-hmm. But then how that magma turns into this rich ash and volcanic material that is like so rich in metals and elements and like the elements of life, and just really appreciating the richness of soil and coming together and amalgamation of life and all of its qualities and
nutrients,
yeah. I use that word again, nutrients.
It's like a common theme. And I'm seeing back to like even the algae bloom, and I was seeing like this reference, this whole play on words with, as we bloom, we send out this wave, and it's almost like it can be too much at times, because when there's an algae bloom, it kills off some of the oxygen, but once it dissipates and spreads out and is absorbed, it then creates mass feeding. A mass feeding of nutrients, just like the volcanic eruption, it has. So it's this wave of creation and co-creation and working with the elements working together to create. And we are the elements. So we're being invited to work within our bodies, to work with our bodies, to work within the bodies of our humanality, so to speak, as well. Our social structures, everything is being I'm hearing reworked. So I'm hearing, like, instead of doing the time warp, that song, let's do the time warp again. Like, we're not in that anymore. It's like, that's been, so let's rework this so that we're coming out of this warped sense. It's like this spin. Now we're coming out and we're like, oh, okay, let's get back into 0 point. And we get back into this sway and this dance with co-creating. And I don't know why I'm hearing spectral frequency, but
I'm hearing productivity and produce. I'm thinking of your vegetable dreams, and like, which gives reference to farming and tending in the soil. And then I'm also seeing like ants and ant colonies, and it's just like and repurposing. And now I'm seeing the turtle card that we pulled earlier. We didn't share that, but it's like the porpoise. And
well, the turtle is that coming together of all the shapes, and creates that shell. And the turtle shell is part of the turtle, right? It's not separate from the turtle. The turtle doesn't live without the shell, or it doesn't live. It's like all connected. It's like all these puzzle pieces coming together. And I think you'd said earlier, slow and steady wins the race. There is this sense that there's this overwhelming sense of people who feel like they missed the race, or they're like, what's going on? I need to be jumping on this bandwagon or jumping like part of what still point is about is just being
Okay.
still.
So I'm hearing urgency, but
Mm-hmm.
no, you're just urged to see.
Yeah. I'm hearing the heat has risen. So I'm hearing, what's that old foreigner? Urgent, like an old 80s song, urgent. But it's like heat.
Yeah.
The heat is making us feel like the heat is on. So we're getting uncomfortable, but really it's like just let this kind of detox and settle. Enjoy the heat. Because that's what creates, it's creation.
That's
Lava.
creation. So I wanna quickly just share the cards. We don't have to go into them too much. So right when we started talking to each other, we just pulled some cards really quick. These just flew out.
Oh, my little guy.
Okay.
All right, I'm back. We're back. So back to the card.
Okay, so we pulled 3 cards, popped out for us, and there's just a nice flowy message that goes along with them. So the first one is the turtle card, and it says slow and steady wins the race. And the second one is the moth spirit, which is surrender now. And then the third one is the crow, which is co-create with spirit.
Yeah, we're calling it procreate.
Procreate. So slow and steady wins the race. So it's kind of like slow down and then surrender now. So like be in that stillness and that moment, even though all of this energy and this magma and this like it's building, but it's just like, okay, sit in that, allow that creative juice to sort of really sit inside you and allow you the time to discover what it is you want to put that beautiful sacred creation energy into.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at the news and looking at all these places and sort of giving that energy out, it's like let that sit in there. And then it's like, now what are you going to co-create with spirit?
Yeah.
How are you going to let that fly out? What is that? How are you going to spread into that and into the reality with your own signature and your own stamp that is only your own? Like you're the only one who is the reference point that you are, that has the exact life experiences, the exact soul lineage that you have.
Yeah.
And the feelings and things that you have. And like, what do you want to create with your joy in the world that's going to make a difference for you and anyone else who sees you doing your thing?
Yeah. I think that's really important too, because I do feel like a lot of people, they don't know what they want to create right now. And I feel like they feel like they have to figure out what it is. And bottom line is right now, especially, it's just what you just said. It's just, well, you didn't say this, but how I heard it in my own pictures when somebody speaks is what makes you find bliss and joy? What do you feel good? If you feel like you want to make somebody else feel good, it has to start with what makes you feel good, because then that will naturally unfold and make somebody else feel good, because they can see that you're passionate about it and they can feel you being in your heart about it. And crow to me is magic. I know raven and crow are very similar.
I was just feeling like I had this like witch's brew and I have a cauldron and I'm like bubble what I'm like
Yeah.
what am I, but like in a beautiful way, like what magic am I creating
Yeah.
in my alphabet soup of like all the elementary parts and particles that I am, that is the culmination that I am.
Yeah. And it's like you can taste it and be like, oh, I don't know, I want to add a little bit more eye of newt.
We are our own creations as beings, as expressions, as notes, as node points, and like we were saying before, the amount of freaking awesomeness that had to happen on this planet to be able to create a human being.
Yeah.
we'll just appreciate the gazillion amount of years that had to come together to like make humans.
Yeah.
I
And
totally geek out on that. I totally geek out on like that Neil Tyson Degrassi sort of like blow your mind, like this is the magic of the universe.
yeah.
You.
Yeah, if you guys have not seen that, you got to check out Cosmo. What's it called? Cosmos. I don't know what channel it's on, but Neil is he a physicist? Either way, he's the host of the show. And it talks about the cosmos and how we all what had to happen in order for us to be here. And it is really mind-blowing. And it does make you feel, if anything, connected to everything. And recognize that we are part of the I mean, there's a lot of magic that had to go into us, but we're still creating that. It's not over.
Oh, it's not over. It's not over. It's not over, and no one needs to. We're kind of used to being dictated to, like the doctor told me to take this prescription, the dentist told me to do this, this person. So it's like there's all these people that sort of dictate to us what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And that's great. And like I appreciate the specialists and the specialties and stuff like that, which but it doesn't sort of help us to be sort of independent, sovereign creators
Yeah.
when we're in that sort of programmed way, or like autopilot.
Yeah. Autopilot.
Autopilot that we have in so many different areas of ourself. It's like we need to come off of autopilot and come online in more ways we're being called to.
Yeah. And it's multiple lines. It's not just one. Like, even though we talk about one and honing in unity and oneness, really there is, again, it's each individual unique expression of what one means to us, oneness. So it's definitely, again, that all the colors of the rainbow coming together. And that doesn't mean that there's only one shade of purple and there's one shade of, I mean, if you look at a color wheel and all the colors you can make from these basic colors, it's amazing. And then if you look at the artwork that can be created from that, it's infinite. You can do anything we want with it. And we're being invited to play with that creativity, use our magic and create. And it might just be something as simple as a garden. You know, it might be something as simple as starting to write that book that you've always wanted to write, or even recognizing that you don't want to write that book anymore that you've always wanted to write, that you thought you did, and trying something completely different and throwing that away if it's something that doesn't inspire you anymore. And that, I think, is that still point where we just become quiet and we start to hone in on reconnecting our roots to Mother Earth, bliss. And I like to talk too about those bliss isn't, I think I've said this before, it doesn't mean that it's like sunshine and rainbows all of the time. It's just feeling a certain sense of ease. I
and
think
that is that connectedness to earth. That's why it's so important to feel that rootedness, and to feel that rootedness not just only in your feet and your body and your being, but like that rootedness that is like everything. So we have our root chakra, but it's like we want all of our being to be rooted. And that's why the tree is such a, like, I think to me it's the perfect example of rooted, and then all the way up, and like the fruits of the labors of the roots that is carried like just literally all the way up. And then as the tree drops its leaves, it feeds even back into itself. It's just like there's a constant rapport of energy and information that goes through the entire system. And it's really that comprehensive energy awareness. Here is my root, my appreciation, and deeper awareness of all life that I am. Where is my energy going? What fruits are are coming from the labors of my tree. Like, what am I, what are the fruits that I'm bearing in the world?
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Do you like that? Do you like what energy, like really recognize where your sacred energy force is going?
Yeah. And also where you're getting that
Yeah.
nutrition from.
Yeah.
Because you're pulling up water from the earth, you're pulling up water, and then you're connecting in with, while also getting energy from the sun. So it's not just, we're also getting energy from our star, because our star feeds the earth. It feeds, as if we're using the analogy of a tree, or, a tree gets its energy from the sun, but also from the roots and the water. So it's all connected. And also it communicates with all of the other trees. And in addition to that, all of the animals. There's some, have you, what's that book about the Secret Life of Trees? It's like
Oh,
such a, if anybody hasn't read that, it's really a
so
great, what is it?
yeah,
I think it's The Secret Life of Trees, but I'm not positive.
it's just so amazing.
Yeah, like if you think of a forest, these trees will grow and they won't get into each other's, like they just grow to here. Not all of them. There's some of them that take over, but it doesn't matter. Everything has a place, a system, and it all works together. So it's just a really good visualization to ask yourself, what part of the forest am I?
Yeah.
How can I interact with my tree brothers and sisters, and where am I pulling my nutrients from? And that's what we're feeding. If you think of a tree, that certain, like giraffes eat the tree leaves. So it's very symbolic of energy in general, because if we're feeding constantly into a system that isn't good for us, the tree is not going to be healthy. Hence us, we aren't going to be healthy. So it's important to come back to that space of centeredness.
Yeah, and before we hopped on here, we were talking about why is it so important? Why is the what a lot of people call the organic timeline so important?
Yeah.
When I think of organic, I think of life systems that perpetuate more life systems that all contribute to the massive life system that is the organism, that is the earth as a whole, but that is also everything.
Yeah.
And there is something so special about this creation to be, I want to say, protected, tended to, honored, built upon, but like within that biological mimicry. We want to build with nature. We want to look at nature and go, okay, you've obviously figured out some things. Like that's the deep reverence, and as an extension of nature, building with it,
Yeah.
listening to it. Like this is I want to call it like the old science that we need to start really honoring. And where are my notes? Before, like, I wrote some things I wanted to talk about, and I've talked about this before, probably on here, but the Green Wall of Africa,
Mm.
and how there's this initiative to green Africa, and how they're trying to build like this green wall all across Africa, and how that is actually bringing rain to the
Mm-hmm.
areas that have that already. It's bringing rain, animals, vegetation, way of life for the people. So for the people to put out the money to make this green wall, it's going to give back to them. It's not like, oh, we're just planting trees. They are planting an entire ecosystem that will give back to them 100-fold, that's going to take care of their grandchildren and their children and the
Mm-hmm.
children of the world that are not just human children. We're talking animals, we're talking air, birds, elements.
New species.
Yes. So that is also how I see starseeds.
Mm-hmm.
I see them as building these green walls of heart coherence and
Yeah.
love and inspiration and passion and interconnectivity. And I see us building this around the world to create communities, to create harmonic inventions, to create, and it's simply just by the energetic structures that we build, that we feel, the heart fields that can be
Yeah.
measured with some technology. This very real thing, this very real presence. So it's not just one person that does it, because the green wall needs all these trees to
Right.
build it. So we need each one of us to be the coherent love field that we are. And that means something different for every single being. How are you going to emanate your energy? How are you going to co-create with spirit in your own way? And that could be anything.
Yeah.
But it's feeding back and giving back instead of sort of like
Taking away consumerism.
consumerism and creating someone else's dream, passing on the bad news instead of sharing the good news. And how are you going to get the good news if you keep focusing on the bad news? That's that stillness. That's that feel what's truly inside of you. What is your soul saying? What is your connection to the earth saying? And if you don't know, then this is such a beautiful time to
Yeah.
stop, to know and listen.
Yeah, and it's almost, I mean, there's several things. It's going back to the old ways, not the old ways of the 1950s or the old ways of, you know, our grandparents, but maybe our great-great-grandparents and beyond that. It's the old ways that we've forgotten about, and it's really looking at the support network. So the earth supports itself. The systems are supportive, as far as the plants and the trees and you know, things like that. Even the animals, to a certain extent, you know, most of the animals have a support. The mushrooms in the forest, you know, the ants, everything has its role. And the difference is, as humans, we have freedom of choice. It's not like we're just an ant and this is our job. That is maybe what we've done in the past and said, well, this is what we're going to grow up and be, and this is all we're going to do. Like the builders from the Legos movies. But we have that choice to say, you know what, I really like what that concept of, like, let's talk about the green wall for a minute. You have all these people that come in with these great ideas. You might have someone who's a chemist who has these great natural ideas of how to stimulate the soil without chemicals, you know, because chemicals are derivatives of natural plants. Or you might have someone who's a zoologist. And so all of these great minds, individual characteristics of a human being. Now I'm just talking about a job or a title, but this could be someone who is, you know, this takes us into, let's go a little deeper and say there are people who have singing qualities or have the ability to heal with their hands, or perhaps have, you know, all of this coming together through all the layers. It's like beyond this old unsupported system. It's no longer supported. So let's regroup. And you also brought up a really valid point too on, if we're feeding back, you know, we're getting all this news. This happened and that happened. And I really think what's key to that is happened. It already happened. If you're hearing it on the news, it isn't necessarily real time. So if we're feeding into what's already happened, then how can we be creating from that space? Because that's something that somebody else has already projected. So while that can be fine to learn about or to utilize or to feed into once in a while, it really is all about us coming back to our own still point of creation and tuning that out for a little bit to find what really is supportive of our soul signature, so that we can then support the earth soul signature that supports the galactic soul signature.
Beautiful. Because there's no separation. The earth is very cosmic and very galactic.
Yeah.
And so absolutely diverse in the richness of the universe. If you see just how many species and subtypes and this and that, this earth is valuable beyond anything that I can say right now without bawling my eyes out.
I know, right?
Oh gosh, it's just so amazing. And
Well, and that's the other thing too I find interesting, because if you watch shows like, let's say, the Cosmos, or there's a few great ones on. That's the one I've been really tuning into, or Blue Earth. You know, I remember for a long time on like National Geographic, it'd always be competition and survival of the fittest, and these lions battling it out because they're starving, and even that to me is a form of programming, thinking that that's how we're supposed to behave, because we're animals and we're animalistic. And I really want to just touch back into that is, again, an old system. That isn't what's going on anymore if we choose not to feed into that. And what I mean by that is there's so much more, like you said, diversity. There's so much more juice and beautiful layers of all of creation that we are just learning about, or that we've already known about, but none of us have ever been taught. And so as we pique our curiosity and we learn about these things, we're going, I didn't know that existed. And it gives us hope. It gives us, I feel bliss when I see that, rather than, you know, the earth is dying. I mean,
that's a crock. And I just like, I'm just getting crazy shivers. I'm closing my eyes and I'm tapping into the excitement and the possibilities of what we can create here. And that's what's knocking on our door and my
yeah,
door. I feel like this knock, knock, knock. Hey, humans, like there's something way more exciting and awesome that you guys could all be doing with your time.
yeah,
I promise you, listen and follow this feeling and cultivate this inner knowing and this receptivity to communicate with the elements. It will blow your mind. It will blow your
yes,
heart. It will unite every cell in your being. Like there is something else that you could be a part of. And that is the organic timeline. That is the timeline of life that gives back to life, that gets back to life, that you can really feel clean about and good about. Like,
mhm. And
it, you know,
it's not to discredit the
no,
fact that we need to clean up our oceans, and we need to recycle and stop using plastic, and we need to become more, you know, whole. It's not to discredit any of that information. It's good to know what we shouldn't be doing anymore that
yeah,
destroys it.
and not,
But it's not, we don't need to focus on that.
no, no, and it's not to bring in guilt or shame or we've done wrong because we've done this or the. It's like no, 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 no.
Yeah,
The energy is just to invite that ingenuity. There are, like, what I'm being told is there are inventions and there are people and there are things that are just like waiting to come into our reality. There are ways of being that are just waiting, and there are people that are here even now that all they have to do is be still and know, surrender, and those inventions are right there.
yeah,
They're in the universal mind complex of realities that exist in space-time continuums that overlap and overlay and communicate to us in
yeah,
the network. And
yeah,
they're there. It's just like, take yourself away from the distraction, soften, relax, get into that inspirational space where you love life, and life is going to tell you what to do. You're going to get that invention, you're going to get that idea, and we're all going to start like the ants or the worker bees, sharing these good news. I have this piece, you have that piece. And it's just like, I'm feeling this excitement of how to clean up the world in not a guilty place. Like, oh my
yeah,
gosh, I feel so guilty. I made a mess in my room. I got to clean up. No, it's like this invitation, this journey that we can all take in our own way. Again,
yeah,
like building a garden. It's just like, just start bringing the codes in of the solution. And um, there's something about just welcoming those codes in and they will, just like when you're giving someone Reiki or energy work, it will go to the right place that it's needed. So even you as a conduit could bring in an invention for the inventor down the street. And you're helping that person bring in, because we are all cable wires of the organic Wi-Fi human 100th network. These ideas are not just coming into our heads. They're transmitting around in this great field. So just bring it in. Bring it in and give it to whoever's meant to have it. And then, also cultivate what you can create.
Yeah, I love that. And it's, it's like all of our scientists, most of the scientists, they're aware of what's going on out in the world, but they're always pondering the universe. They're pondering the cosmos. They're asking questions. They work for the most part, they're working together. And it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's try that. Let's try this. And it takes us away from that old, when I say old, I'm not talking about old. I'm talking about, that concept of mine, have to get there to the finish line first.
Right. Exactly. What you're saying is exactly, I'm getting the same thing. It's like inventing and creating life based on your excitement and your joy and your exploration, and out of like faith and sustainability and that mature understanding, instead of like having your inventions going towards fear and lack and like a war against. I'm inventing this because it's a race against, or there's like this desperation. Good inventions can come from those moments of pressure, but there's another magic. There's another thing that comes when we relax and tap into that that is already sustaining us. So
it's a layer, and I'm just going to pause for a second. So on what you're talking about, Kandice, about those codes kind of floating out there, calling in the Ethernet, right, in the space around us. Again, it's like what you said, be still and know, obviously a Bible quote, but when we are not still and we're constantly creating a spin, those codes of knowingness, of remembrance, of creativity they are not able to sink in and anchor in. They're just like boing, boing. We might have like, oh, I had a great idea, or I feel like there's something I could do with this, but I don't know what, because we're not necessarily being still enough to absorb them and to digest them. And so this time more than ever now is the perfect time to open to those codes that have been in our awareness, or maybe those that have never been in our awareness but we're becoming aware of, or the ones that are still just out of reach but they're there. And to sit and just allow those to percolate, and then once they kind of take root like seedlings, this has already happened. This is already happening, but we have to become still enough to notice that. And that's that aha moment that we have where we can then move into action. But it's hard to come from an action if we're not being still first, and we're not necessarily honing in on the correct action, so to speak, or the correct angle for the action, So I don't know if you wanted to add to that, but did you want to end with some toning and some?
Sure.
We're always up for that, right? Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we should just end this and just then start a next.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So I think we'll end on that note, because that was some fun information to play with. I mean, all we're doing when we share these videos is we're just communicating and sharing what we love to do, which is nerd out on cosmic information.
I love that. Yes.
So thank you so much for nerding out with us, and we'll have more of these these things to share with you guys as we have the opportunity to share them. And in love and light, guys, have fun creating your own story within this story time that we're being gifted, right? That used to be my favorite time at school, right? We'd have story time and I'd get so excited because even though the story is being told, my imagination goes everywhere. It's not just what's written in the book. It's where we take it from there.
Exactly.
Yeah. In love and light, and thank you so much, Kandice.
Thank you.
Namaste, guys.